Hey there guys, and welcome to yet another episode of Building Posts. Now, those of you who are not familiar with this is a series where I have been looking at the impact of CloudPost and GlimmerPost on the Pauper format and seeing how they may impact, and basically wanted to see if we could put together just about any deck with these and make it work. Now, we had seen quite a few competitive versions in monocolor, and the guilds, things like Green Post and Is It Post, have been very popular and have had success. So we were trying to fill in the blanks as far as other monocolored and other guild decks. Now, those of you also who follow me on Twitter may notice a bit of we'll just say distress over technology recently, and that has to do with this particular set of videos. I had recorded this initially, and for whatever reason the program I was using cut off the first minute or so of the deck tech and the review video. Sorry, blanked for a minute there. So we had to re-record, and I re-recorded this several times now with no luck, so hopefully this time it works out. That does mean there will be a slight change. Usually when I do these, you have a video of me building the deck, a video of me playing the deck, and then a video of me reviewing the deck and what my final thoughts were. We're going to do this a little bit differently. There's no point in building the deck for you. Usually that's kind of me showing how my build process goes, but because the deck's already put together, I can't really show you me building it. It would just be me adding the cards and talking about them. So instead of just doing that, I'm going to just review what I went with in my thought process. Also, instead of having a separate video for the review, I'm just going to kind of sum that up here at the end as well. And hopefully you guys can forgive me for my technological errors. So this is going to be the Golgari deck. I like to call it the GolPost deck. And what I wanted to do is there was a couple of things. I wanted to either take, obviously start with a core that is the green post. And I wanted to either, add in some removal to complement the big creatures that we're familiar with, or I wanted to just basically complement it in other ways. And after looking through all of the options for black removal spells, there were things like Evankar's Justice, which were nice, but some of the pretty much the most efficient spells, the best spells for removal in the format, come in at that lower cost, and you really don't need this extra mana off Cloudpost and Glimmerpost in order to make those happen. I guess something like Spinning Darkness could be used, and maybe that is something that we can test out later, but I just ultimately decided that I felt there were better ways to complement it. So I started out with a basic core for Green Post here, and I brought in Ancient Stirrings, Expedition Map, Explore, Prophetic Prism, Reap and Sow, Auroch Herds, and the Crushers. And this was kind of the base core that I was working off of from Green Post. These are all cards that you find there. And one of the things I really like about Green Post is kind of the card advantage that it can create in most interesting ways. The Auroch Herds, let's take for example. What these do is it has that ability to search out another Auroch Herds. They kind of work like Squadron Hawks, for those of you who are not familiar, except you can only fetch out one at a time. Now, what this is basically creating card advantage. It gives you that chance to accelerate your creature base to work that aggro strategy and get multiple heavy creatures on the field. You also gain some advantage through things like Expedition Map and Reap and Sow, which allow you to thin out your land base and kind of accelerate also into these bigger creatures. Further that with an extra card draw off of Explore and Prophetic Prism, not to mention the almost tutor ability of Ancient Stirrings, where you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put a colorless into play. So that's into your hand. But that's pretty good, the acceleration that can bring you. So I wanted to definitely complement that, and that kind of worked out really well because I, of course, added Phyrexian Rager. This is kind of a go-to card for me in any black deck. It's pay 1 life, draw a card for a 2/2 body off of 3. It works really well. It's definitely something that I wanted to go for. So adding that in, it really gives you quite a lot of tempo. You can really create decent card advantage. This deck draws really well, and I think that's really kind of cool. So what else did I want to bring in here? One of the big things that you have an issue with in Green Post is the idea that once you get a deck that has a lot of creature kill, like Mono Black Control in the matchup, you're going to be in pretty bad shape. The deck basically relies on these aura curds and these crushers, and if your opponent has 8 removal spells and can kill those off, then it's going to be game over and there's no way you can come back from that. So I wanted to kind of complement this in a few ways. The first was I wanted to bring in Disturb Burial. Disturb Burial is one of 2 recursion spells that I had considered. We had I had also considered the Grim Harvest, which is great, but I don't like the fact that recover, usually if I'm running that recover mechanic, I like to have a little more interactivity with that deck, and I like to be able to do a little bit more as far as forcing the recover to trigger. And I don't think this deck has that opportunity at all. So instead, I decided that Disturb Burial here was a much better choice. We're all aware of how Capsize works out so well in Is It Post because of the fact that it has that buyback ability. It's just really easy to get to when you have the post lands. So I thought that could work out really well. Now, I also wanted to bring in kind of another interesting card here in the Terrace Worm. This is a card I came across while drafting for RTR and thought that, I was considering every time I see a comment, I consider whether or not it has Pauper applications. So usually if you look at at least a classic deck for Green Post, what you're going to find is that it runs usually a single copy of the Marauder, I believe it is, that whenever an artifact goes to the graveyard, you gain 5 life, which is nice. And the other thing that you usually find is a single copy of the Corrosion Tusker, which allows you to cycle to fetch out a land. Now, I think this deck is going to have an easy enough time with the land fetch, but because of the Corrosion Tusker and the impact that has, I did consider the use of Twisted Abomination. That's a 5/3 creature that allows you to cycle for a swamp, and it also, it's a pretty decent sized body. It allows you the chance to regenerate as well, and so that can be kind of nice. So I had considered that in place because of the fact that it does allow you to fetch that land. But ultimately, I decided that I really wanted to give this worm a try as well because of the fact that Green Post often struggles with removal. This is a card that works kind of like Young Wolf, and it says, go ahead, it almost dares your opponent to remove it, because if you do, I'm still going to be able to get that extra bonus by this Scavenge ability, which allows me to put counters on creatures. So the thought was here also, if you have removal, if you finally manage to get rid of one of my big creatures in this guy, it's going to give me a chance to bring that damage back to the field in one way or another. And I think that could work out really cool. So I also wanted to bring in the Essence Harvest. This is something I had first played with, I think, in the Mono Black Post deck. And the idea behind it was, if you're running these big creatures anyway, especially things like the Crushers, using this Essence Harvest is going to be a great complement. And generating the mana that's needed to say, play a Crusher and Essence Harvest in the same turn is not a problem at all either. So the idea behind it is that, we're going to be fast with creatures, but this may give us a chance to speed things up as well. Like I said, the deck can struggle if they have a lot of removal. So what we do is we use these Essence Harvests, and the idea is that we're going to be able to, in turn, speed things up a little bit more, do a little bit extra damage. Say we just swung for 8, something like that, off of the Crusher. You're going to get an extra 8 damage off of an Essence Harvest. So that can be really nice. I don't know, I really wish it came in at instant speed. I think that would make it that much better. You really can't go with something like a Drain Life effect in here because of the fact that you're running so much green mana. It really has to kind of balance out. So when we built the mana base here, we are looking pretty even as far as green and black, so I did run a set of 5 of each for swamps and islands. I'm sorry, swamps and forests. So we did run a set of 5 and 5 there. I brought in the guild gates, and I don't want to talk about these too much because I can go on rants about it. I have talked about in the past, I don't think they are a decent fit in most 8-post decks because of the fact that they come in tapped. I do like the bounce off of the old Ravnica duels, because it gives us that replayability on Glimmer Post, especially in a deck like this that doesn't have a blue mana base for things like Capsize and Glimmer Post. But I think because this deck can gain a little extra life off of the Essence Harvest, running the Guild Gates is fine. Also, because this deck has a lot more as far as land fetch, I think the fact that it's going to come into play tapped is not going to hurt us either, which is something that I think could be. And I know some people have said to me, oh, well, look, all these decks are running it and being successful, so obviously it's the right thing. But I just like to say, just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean that it's correct. It just means that everyone's doing it. But that's all I will say about that. So, oh, I didn't talk about echoing decays here. The echoing decay is something that, I said I didn't want to bring in a heavy removal package, but at the same time, I do feel that it needed something. And again, I considered stuff like Evenkar's Justice, but I prefer echoing decay for a couple reasons. The first and foremost is the fact that it's instant speed. This card is the best answer for Storm, which is very plentiful right now in the metagame. And it allows you to deal with Empty the Warrens. So I like that it comes in at instant speed. It'll give you that chance to come back, whereas opposed to Evenkar's Justice, which is sorcery speed. This also comes in at a cheaper cost, which will allow you to play a creature and the removal spell. While it may not always be removing everything you need, it does give you some advantages as well for combat tricks. Like I said, GolPost, one of the things it often does is it uses combat to use these bigger creatures in order to match up against little creatures and beat them down and take them off the board. Echoing Decay gives us a little bit of a combat trick, which will allow us to, trade for something like, in most cases, if you look at it, a blocking between Auroch Herd into Mirror Enforcer. The Enforcer and the Herd would die, but with the Echoing Decay, it'll at least give you an advantage if you find the necessary situation where you can make it a 2 toughness and get a little extra damage over not only from the trampling, but you're going to keep your Herd on the board, which works out really well. So, I really think that worked out well. It has, some decent applications. I don't think there's anything that can work out better. Like, I think I talked about Spitting Darkness, and I think that could work in place of something like Essence Harvest. Let's sum this up here. So I've played the games, I tested it out, and it actually worked pretty much the way I wanted it to. And I think that's mostly a result of the fact that I built it off of this regular GolPost base. So when you build off a core set of cards from an existing deck, what ends up happening is that it's going to pretty much run the way you expect it to, and that's fantastic. The creatures came out fast, the acceleration was decent, we hit most of our mana drops, which is great. And at the same point in time, you're really didn't lose anything by adding black. Sometimes what you have to watch out for is whether or not adding another color is going to kind of throw off that core and make it not work as efficiently. I think it actually complemented it in the way I wanted to. I actually, unfortunately though, didn't really get a chance to test out these Terrace Worms, the Disturbed Burial, and the Essence Harvest, so I can't really give an assessment on how I think they worked out. I think for the most part, I expect them to work out the way they were intended to. The situations didn't really call for it, however, which was a little disappointing, I guess. But at the same time, it didn't hurt me in any way, so I guess it just would require more testing. Again, I usually make these as non-competitive, just for the fact that I don't have time to really tune them up and build a sideboard. I think in the first couple of videos I did build sideboards, but I decided after a while that it just required too much time to play matches out and stuff like that. So I think these could work. I think Terrace Worm versus the Twisted Abomination, is something that can be done. It's something that maybe you want to consider based upon your metagame. That might give you a better idea of what you want to play. If you're a little more afraid of creatures and you want to have that regenerate ability, I think then maybe you can go with the Twisted Abominations. If you're expecting to face a little bit more as far as removal is concerned, then you want to definitely try out these worms. Like I said, a little unfortunate that I have not gotten a chance to really give them a real testing as much as I would have liked to, but I think they should work as intended. I really don't, like I said, have a lot to say, and I think that's because, again, this was built off a solid core of GolPost, and that means that it pretty much ran the way that GolPost is expected to run. And therefore, I really don't have a lot to say about it. There was not a lot that went wrong in any means, if anything. So I guess I'll just kind of sum up the channel here. I do have some other stuff in the works. I apologize that this video is a little janky because of the fact that I had so many technical issues, but I'm going to try and work those out. You can catch me every other Thursday on mtgoacademy.com. It's a pretty great site, and go check it out on a regular basis. What else we got for you? I think it kind of opens up my schedule, actually, working on an every other week basis. It allows me a little more time to put content up here, as as I can. I am going to be working on getting up more videos for this building post series. I think we are coming kind of towards the end. There cannot be, I think maybe 3. I don't have my list on me, but I think there's maybe 3 decks left to put together. So I think we should be looking to come to an end on this soon. I really am looking forward to writing kind of a summary deck of what I found over this series for MTGO Academy. I also have a deck, and I apologize to the guy who sent it to me, that I've been sitting on for a while now for fan fixes, so that can go up soon as I get a chance. Also going to be working on budget mechanics. I need to kind of figure out how to reconfigure that. I still have some of the videos already recorded. That was from when I was writing it pure, and I didn't get a chance to finish it before the site bugged out on me. So we can still hopefully get that going at some point in time once I get a chance to figure it out, like I said. So I think that covers it, guys. I will catch you later, and keep tuning in for these videos.